I stood there, hands on my hips, staring at him like he'd just spoken in another language. "I'm sorry, what?" The soft music still drifted through the private dining room, candles flickering over a table set with barely touched steak and salad. Everything about the evening had felt carefully arranged, expensive, quiet, deliberate. And across from me sat Ethan, my father's enemy's son, the one person I had tried to keep a respectful distance from. Our families had been circling the same issue for as long as I could remember. Land, cities, profit, none of it ever seemed to be enough for either side. I wanted nothing to do with any of it. Drugs, blood, late-night meetings that always smelled like tension and violence, that world belonged to my father and my brother, not me. After the one time my father tried to pull me into a trade meeting and I watched how quickly things turned ugly, I made my choice. My brother could inherit the empire. I would stay clean. I would finish my business degree. I would open the little flower shop I'd been dreaming about since I was a teenager. A normal life. That was the plan. But plans never survived our families for long. Somewhere between the two of them, mine and the Nines, things had reached a breaking point. I didn't even know the full reason. Land, probably. Power. The usual. Ethan was stepping up, preparing to take his father's place, and somehow that had led to this, one dinner. My father had asked me to go, keep the peace for a single evening. That was all. I had met Ethan before. Family gatherings, the occasional public event, the rare polite conversation when we couldn't avoid each other. He was always careful with me. Soft brown eyes, dark curly hair that never quite stayed neat, a sharp jaw that softened the second he smiled that boyish smile of his. He listened when I talked about the flower shop, or maybe a cafe, or even just a quiet little ice cream place someday. He never pushed, never brought up the business. For a while, it felt like we could pretend we weren't standing on opposite sides of something ugly. I used to love him because of that. Well used is a strong word. I won't lie. There are times where these feelings would come up and I found myself loving him again. However, my heart was crushed. One night I went looking for him and found him with my cousin Cindy in a way that was anything but friendly. It reminded me exactly who he was, another man shaped by the same world that had already taken too much from me. I remembered crying so much in my room that night. So I stepped back, polite, distant, let the crush die quietly and kept myself far away from the mess. And now here he was, sitting across from me in a tailored suit, wine glass in hand, watching me with that same calm expression while my face burned and my pulse hammered. He set the glass down slowly. "Marry me, YN, he said again, voice steady. "I'm in love with you, and if you marry me, I won't start a war with your family." I stared at him for another long moment, the words still hanging between us like they hadn't fully landed yet. Then I slowly sank back into my chair, elbows on the table, and rubbed my forehead with both hands. My eyes closed for a second as I tried to make the whole night make sense. "Ethan!" I exhaled, the name coming out softer than I meant it to. He hummed in quiet acknowledgement, waiting. I opened my eyes and looked at him properly. "You're joking, right?" I forced a small smile, even let out a little awkward laugh, hoping he'd crack and tell me this was some elaborate, terrible joke. But Ethan's face stayed completely serious. No smile, no soft, boyish grin, just that steady, calm expression that made my stomach twist. The laugh died in my throat. I frowned hard. "No, no, no, no." I shook my head, leaning back slightly. "You can't be in love with me." One of his eyebrows lifted. "Why not?" I opened my mouth, then closed it again, searching for the right words. "Because me, I'm not your type, and you are my type," he cut in smoothly. "In fact, you're my only type." Heat rushed straight to my face. I felt it bloom across my cheeks and the tips of my ears. For a second, I could only whisper, "But what about Cindy?" His brows pulled together in genuine confusion. "My cousin," I clarified, voice a little stronger now. "I saw you too." Ethan paused. I watched him think, watched the memory click into place. Then his expression shifted into a faint frown. "That interaction meant nothing to me," he said carefully. "It was just a quick moment." The words landed exactly the way I expected them to. Another reminder of the kind of man he was, casual, detached when it suited him, just like the rest of them. I felt my own frown deepen as I took a slow breath, trying to steady the sudden tightness in my chest. "Well," I said quietly, meeting his eyes again, "I'm sorry. You aren't my type." Ethan didn't look away. His voice stayed even, almost curious. "Then what's your type?" I froze. The question hung in the air longer than it should have, and I realized I had never actually answered it for myself. A few fleeting crushes here and there over the years, but if I was being honest, they never stuck. None of them lasted the way the quiet, stubborn pull toward Ethan had. He was the only one who had stayed in the background of my life long enough to matter, even when I tried to pretend he didn't. I swallowed and crossed my arms tightly over my chest, trying to rebuild the wall between us. None of your business," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. "But you are not my type." I kept my chin lifted, hoping the strong face would hide how unsteady I suddenly felt. "Either way, there are better women out there for you, I don't think." "There is no other woman, YN," he cut in, voice quiet but absolute. "There is only you."
"How did the dinner go, sir?" Zach's voice cut through the quiet of the car as he drove. I didn't answer right away. My hand had already reached for the cigarette tucked in my jacket, the familiar motion automatic after years of nights like this. I paused halfway, the lighter still unlit between my fingers. YN had asked me not to smoke earlier, before the dinner even started. She wrinkled her nose the same way she always did whenever the smell clung to someone's clothes and something in me had gone still. She didn't like it, so I put the cigarette away. If I was serious about this, about her, then some things would have to change. I couldn't afford to give my future wife another reason to dislike me. I turned my head toward the window instead, watching the city blur past. People crowded the sidewalks, laughing, spilling out of bars, living like the night belonged to them. My mind stayed elsewhere, on her. She looked beautiful tonight, she always did, but something about the soft light in that private room made it harder to ignore. The way her eyes caught the candlelight, the careful way she smiled when she was trying not to show how unsettled she felt, even her voice quiet, a little sharp when she was angry, but still carrying that same sweetness underneath. Innocent, almost. It had taken me longer than it should have to realize what I felt when I heard it. When she started pulling away from me, I didn't understand why. One day she was still talking to me the way she always had, and the next she was polite, distant, careful. It bothered me more than I let anyone see. And now I know why. Before I realized what I felt for her, I fooled with her cousin. Cassie, Katie, I leaned back. Well, it doesn't matter. The only one who has my heart now is YN, because with YN, I never had to perform. I didn't have to be the oldest son of the Nines. I didn't have to carry the weight of the men who answered to me, the money that moved through our hands, the product that kept the empire running. Around her, I could just be Ethan. The version of myself that preferred his coffee a certain way, that stayed up too late reading about wars that had already been fought, that once dreamed of packing a bag and seeing those places with his own eyes instead of only on a page. And when she talked about her own dreams, the flower shop, the quiet life she wanted, I felt something close to peace. She never tried to impress me. She never looked at me like I was someone to fear or someone to use. She spoke to me like I was just a man, a normal one. Unfortunately, the blood in my veins had never allowed me to be that. The blood in my veins had always allowed me to be selfish, cruel when the situation called for it. No one ever really questioned it. I did what needed to be done for the family, for the business, for the empire that would one day be mine. People fell in line because that was the way things worked. I expected it. I was used to it. But YN had never fallen in line the way everyone else did. I told myself it was temporary, that she would come back around the way she always had. But the longer the distance stretched, the clearer it became. Those brief moments with her when I could drop the weight of the Nines and just exist as myself had been the only ones that ever felt real. She had seen that version of me. And once I realized how rare that was, how no one else had ever managed it, I understood exactly how special she was. I wasn't going to let her slip further away.
I crossed my arms tightly and slumped back into the stiff leather couch in my father's office, the same way I used to as a kid when I already knew the lecture wasn't going to end in my favor. He stood behind his desk, voice calm and certain as he explained, again, why marrying Ethan Nines was the right move. Good for the family. Good for the businesses. Two empires becoming one, stronger than either of us could ever be alone. I rolled my eyes hard. Beside me, Tyler let out a quiet chuckle. "Dad, give her a moment to think," he said. "She just got proposed to." Our father turned his sharp gaze on his oldest son. "Exactly. She should give it a lot of thought. This is a chance for us, and—" "What about love?" The question came out sharper than I expected. Both of them went quiet. My father and Tyler stared at me like I'd just spoken a language they didn't understand. Confusion first, then clear shock. I pushed myself upright, refusing to stay sunk into the cushions. "What if I want to marry for love?" I added, giving a small, defiant tilt of my head, trying to sound braver than the nervous flutter in my chest. I knew what love looked like in this house. I knew my father and brother loved me, deeply, fiercely, with the kind of loyalty that would burn the world down if anyone ever hurt me. But the kind of love I was talking about, the quiet, chosen kind that wasn't built on alliances or power or keeping two families from tearing each other apart. That version had never really lived here. Tyler let out a short laugh. My father only sighed and rubbed his forehead like the entire conversation was giving him a headache. I frowned at the sound of Tyler's amusement. What's so funny? He chuckled again but cleared his throat, trying to tone it down. Love, really? I mean, yes, love is a nice thing, but it doesn't get you anything here. My frown deepened. Well, Ethan said he's in love with me, and both of them went rigid. Their eyes widened at the same time. What? They shouted in near-perfect unison. I blinked, caught off guard by the reaction. You guys didn't know. My father shook his head slowly, already thinking. Tyler, however, let out another laugh, louder this time. I whipped my head toward him. What now? He kept laughing for another second before he managed to speak. I mean, Ethan, in love with you, really. Tyler, our father warned, but my brother kept going. I'm just saying, we've seen his last few girlfriends, or flings. There's no way he can be in love with YN, he laughed again, shaking his head. Heat flooded my face so fast it almost burned. Embarrassment sat heavy in my chest because Tyler was right. I had seen the women Ethan used to keep around. Daughters of other families, beautiful, breathtaking, really. The kind of women who knew how to stand beside him without looking out of place. I remembered overhearing them once, talking about deals and territories like it was nothing, understanding every word, fitting next to him like they belonged there. I had been jealous. Quietly, stupidly jealous. Because all I ever talked to him about was the flower shop I wanted to open someday, or the romance novel I couldn't put down, or the kind of small, ordinary things a normal girl would care about. Not the daughter of one of the most feared men in the city. Not someone who was supposed to understand this world the way those other women did. I knew I didn't fit with him. How could I? I had watched women throw themselves at him. I had caught glimpses of the colder, sharper sides of him that I would never fully understand. I didn't belong in that picture. And deep down, I knew the truth. Ethan wasn't in love with me. There is no other woman. YN, there is only you. His voice echoed in my head, clear and steady from the night before. But even as I heard it again, I told myself it was a lie. He only wanted the marriage because of the business. Everything else was just words, a way to keep the peace. Tyler was still laughing when my father started to speak again. I didn't let him finish. I stood up fully, spine straight even though my pulse was racing. Either way, I said, voice firmer than I felt, marrying Ethan Nines for the family isn't what I want, and I'm done having this conversation. I kept walking as fast as I could, backpack straps digging into my shoulders. My exam was only 2 weeks away. After that, graduation. Everything right now had to be about studying. Not marriage, not him. Just the books and the quiet future I had planned for myself. But the man behind me was catching up easily, those long legs closing the distance without effort. Slow down, I ignored him. I couldn't let my focus break now, especially not on the handsome guy trailing me. No, don't even think that. Don't admit it. Shall we have a cup of coffee while you study? Ethan asked, already at my side. He tilted his head down to look at me and smiled that soft, boyish smile that always made something twist in my chest. I kept my eyes straight ahead. Ethan, he hummed in quiet acknowledgement. Don't you have meetings to attend? I asked. He shook his head. No, Vincent has it. I prefer to spend time with you. I have to get to know you better since we're going to get married and... I stopped walking so abruptly that he almost took another step past me. I turned and looked up at him. We won't get married. We can't get married. Ethan blinked once. Then he straightened, slipping his hands into his pockets. The easy smile faded. And why not? His tone shifted, quieter, heavier, serious in a way that made a small flicker of fear rise in my chest. I forced myself to stand my ground. I couldn't lose to him. I wouldn't let my heart get broken again. I wouldn't fall into whatever delusional dream he was trying to sell me. I crossed my arms tightly. Because you're not actually in love with me. You just want to be in business with my family. Fine, you can, but leave me out of it." His eyes narrowed slightly as he watched me. "And this whole war talk," I continued, voice steadier than I felt, "there's no way you would actually do it just so you can marry me." I saw the faint twitch at the corner of his eye. I knew I was probably bruising his ego, but I had to say it. It was all talk. Ethan wasn't stupid enough to start a real war with my family. The bloodshed, the chaos, the fallout, it would cost too much. "So be real, Ethan. It's better if you find someone who actually fits you. After all, I want nothing to do with this. I want my flower shop." He finished the sentence for me. I blinked, then nodded slowly. "I know," he said, voice low. He stepped closer, close enough that the sudden nearness caught me off guard. He lowered his head until his face was only inches from mine. "I know everything, and I know what I want. I want you, and it will happen." I opened my mouth to argue, but he straightened before I could speak. "Have fun studying, sweetie. I do have a meeting to attend." He took my hand before I could pull it away. The seriousness in his expression made my thoughts scatter. Then he lifted my hand and pressed a slow kiss to the back of it. Heat flooded my face instantly. "And I will come back for you." He let go and walked away without another word. I stood there, completely speechless, watching him disappear into the crowd. After a few seconds, I blinked hard, then scoffed under my breath. "What? No way. I dragged in a deep breath, trying to steady the racing in my chest. "He's crazy."
The soft, delicate music drifted through the crowded ballroom, undercut by quiet laughter and the low murmur of business talk. Another one of those stupid events where I had to keep my face carefully neutral, while everyone else kissed the ground I walked on, for the money, for the power, for the chance to be useful to the nines. Men tried too hard to impress me with stories of their latest moves. Women smiled easily, blinking slowly whenever my gaze passed over them, hoping for even a second of attention. I couldn't have cared less. My father had put this entire party together the moment I made my move. It had been a few days since I'd last seen YN, even though every one of those days had felt longer than it should have. I missed her. The sound of her voice, the way she looked at me when she was trying to stay strong, the quiet stubbornness that never quite hid how soft she could be. I had even declined her calls and left her messages unanswered on purpose. It was the only way to make sure she would come tonight. That had been the message I sent to her brother and her father. If they wanted me to stop, she needed to show up. Especially after I took one of their family deals right out of their territory. Clean, deliberate, a clear statement. YN had called me out on it. My little future wife had been so brave that day, standing there on the sidewalk with her arms crossed, convinced I wouldn't actually follow through. She thought the threat of war was just talk. She thought I was bluffing. I had to prove her wrong. I had to show her that my word was always true, every single part of it, including the part where I told her I was in love with her. I sipped my drink, the ice shifting against the glass as I fought the familiar urge to reach for a cigarette. It was harder than I expected. Years of the habit didn't vanish overnight, but for YN I would do it. Every time the craving pulled at me, I remembered the way her nose wrinkled at the smell. That alone was enough to keep the pack untouched in my pocket. "Oh, Ethan Nines," a deep voice cut through the soft music and quiet conversation. I rolled my eyes before I even turned, already recognizing the tone. The Morgans. Chris Morgan stood there with his daughter Ellie hovering close at his side. My gaze didn't so much as flicker toward her. I kept it locked on Chris instead. There had been one or two meaningless moments between Ellie and me in the past, nothing that ever meant a damn thing, but women always seemed to decide those moments carried weight. My eyes, though, were only meant for one person. "So taking the deal from Tyler and his family's territory," Chris said, a note of genuine praise in his voice. "What a move," Ellie nodded eagerly. "I heard Tyler was quite furious. Are you planning to take over his side? Because if you are, we'd love to help." She stepped a little closer, her smile widening in that practiced, hopeful way. Zach shifted beside me, ready to intervene, but I gave him a quick, subtle finger gesture to stand down. Chris chuckled and clapped a light hand on his daughter's shoulder. "I'll leave you and Ellie to discuss." He walked away with another low laugh, clearly amused by whatever he thought he was arranging. Ellie's lips stayed curled in that same smile. "So, Ethan, I would love to help you out. I don't need your help," I cut her off cleanly, still not looking at her. Her smile wavered for a second, but she recovered quickly, clearing her throat. "I know, but with me and my family, we can still strengthen your numbers." I took another slow sip of my drink, then finally turned my gaze on her. She flinched just slightly under it, but held her ground. "I don't need you or your family," I said again, voice flat. Ellie swallowed, yet still pushed forward. "Ethan, I can offer you." She reached for my arm. I shifted before her fingers could even brush the fabric of my sleeve. There's only one person who can offer me everything I want, I said quietly. She blinked, confusion flickering across her face. Who, she stuttered. Then the voice I had been dying to hear cut through everything else in the room. Ethan Nines, YN's hand closed around my arm before I fully turned. I looked down at her and felt something in my chest go completely still. Her soft brown eyes were darker than usual, brows furrowed tightly, lips set in that stubborn little pout. She was wearing a simple black dress, her hair pulled up into a neat bun with a few soft curls framing her face. Even angry, especially angry, she looked adorable. My oh my. What the hell do you think you are doing? Her hand was still locked around my arm when I turned fully to face her. A slow smile pulled at my mouth the second I saw her properly. Hi, sweetie, you look beautiful tonight. YN's frown deepened, her fingers tightening on my sleeve. Do sweetie me, tell me why her. Ellie's voice cut in, sharp with disbelief. She looked YN up and down, then turned her gaze back to me. Her, YN stiffened, clearly taken aback. She let go of my sleeve and crossed her arms tightly over her chest. What about me? I kept the smile in place. My little future wife was holding her ground, stubborn as ever. Ellie tried to step closer to me, but I shifted back at the same time, closing the small distance between YN and myself instead. Ellie noticed. Her expression tightened into a frown. You are the one who he wants, she asked, voice rising slightly. The one who can offer him everything. YN blinked, lips parting. A soft flush began to climb up her cheeks. She glanced at me just as I slid my arm around her waist, pulling her gently against my side. Yes, I said clearly. She is. I leaned down, close enough that only she could hear the next words. You are everything I want. YN flinched hard, her entire face turning red in an instant. You, she stuttered, trying to pull away. You can't say that after what you did. She wiggled in my hold, but I didn't let her go, not tonight. Aren't you against her family? Ellie spoke up again. The question earned her a sharp, cold glare from me. She flinched under it. I forced myself to take a slow breath. I couldn't afford to look too intimidating in front of YN, not when I was trying so hard to keep her close. By now, the room had gone quiet. People were staring, whispering behind their glasses, clearly trying to figure out what was unfolding in front of them. I straightened, the smirk returning to my face as I cleared my throat just loud enough to carry. Since everyone is listening, I said, lifting my voice, I want you all to raise your drinks. Tonight we are celebrating. A few people exchanged glances. I continued, calm and deliberate. You may have heard that I took a deal from Tyler's territory. In reality, he was there with me. We did the deal together. YN blinked up at me, confusion flickering across her face. What? She whispered, soft enough that only I caught it. Around us, others murmured the same question. Ellie stood frozen, clearly lost. I raised my glass higher. It's because YN and I are engaged, soon to be married. A collective gasp rippled through the room, followed almost immediately by scattered congratulations, low murmurs, and a few tentative claps. To the two empires coming together, I said clearly, then tipped the glass back and drank. The rest of the room followed, glasses rising, voices joining in the cheer.
Congratulations. Another man offered the word with a polite smile as Ethan thanked him smoothly, never once loosening his hold on me. His arm stayed firm around my waist, keeping me locked against his side like he had no intention of letting me slip away. I didn't know what to think. All I knew was what Tyler had told me earlier, that Ethan had taken a deal that was supposed to be ours. When Tyler confronted him about it, Ethan hadn't even denied it. He said it was because he was starting a war with our family, all because I had rejected him. I hadn't believed those words at the time. I thought it was just more talk, more pressure. So he made damn sure I would believe him this time. Tyler had been furious, and his anger had fueled mine. I couldn't accept that Ethan would actually go that far, let alone that he could truly be in love with me. When my brother announced he was coming to this party to confront Ethan face to face, I insisted on coming with him, especially since he had ignored my calls and texts after I found out. My father and Tyler both tried to stop me, but I couldn't stay away. I felt responsible. No, I was responsible. I hadn't taken Ethan's threat seriously, and this was the result. Even if I hated being part of this world, I was still part of this family. I couldn't just sit at home while everything burned because of me. So why the hell was everyone congratulating us on an engagement? I scanned the room quickly. Neither my brother nor my father was anywhere in sight. The absence made my stomach twist tighter. Those two lied to me, made me believe that Ethan started an actual war with us. I turned my head toward Ethan just as he finished thanking another guest. My cheeks were already burning. Ethan! I cleared my throat, trying to keep my voice steady. He looked down at me immediately, That soft smile of his grew wider as he leaned in a little closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth of his breath. Yes, sweetie. My heart slammed hard against my ribs. The way he said it, so calm, so certain, made me realize just how serious he was about all of this. Can we speak privately? I asked, the words coming out quieter than I meant them to. Ethan nodded without hesitation. Of course. He murmured something low to Zach, then guided me away from the crowd, his hand still firm at my waist as he led me toward a quieter part of the room. Once it was just the two of us, I finally exhaled, the tension in my chest loosening only a little. I tried to wiggle out of Ethan's grip, but he refused to let go. Instead, he fully wrapped both arms around my waist, pulling me in until we were facing each other, bodies pressed close. Ethan, I managed, my voice catching. He hummed in quiet response, leaning in even closer. You look really beautiful tonight, he said softly. Well, always. I pressed my lips together, not knowing what to feel or think. My heart felt like it was about to burst right out of my chest. The closeness, the warmth of him, the way he was looking at me, it was almost too much. Ethan, I said again, firmer this time. I lifted both hands and cupped his face, stopping him from closing the last bit of distance. He immediately gave me that cheesy, teasing smile of his. Yes. I fought the urge to smile back and forced my best frown instead, still not used to being this close to him. What happened? I thought you were going to start a war between our families and… He nuzzled gently into my palm, eyes never leaving mine. I did start a war, but I gave your brother a fair warning before I took the deal. His voice was calm, almost amused. Your brother was very kind to give it to me and be there for it. He said it was a gift to his future brother-in-law. I blinked, completely confused. Ethan chuckled low in his throat, then pressed a soft kiss to the center of my palm. I jumped slightly at the unexpected warmth of his lips before quickly lowering my hands. Your brother was very kind to play along, he continued, so I could get you out here and announce to everyone that we're engaged. My mouth opened, but no real words came out. But I pressed my lips together again, lost. Ethan smiled softly, then leaned in until his forehead rested gently against mine. I love you, YN, he whispered. I really do. You saw a side of me that I thought no one else would ever see. You give me all these feelings I can't control or contain. All I want to do is kiss you, spoil you, give you the flower shop you've always dreamed of, let you be safe in your own little world while He paused. I looked into those dark eyes that had softened completely for me. I want to be there, he finished, voice lower now. I promise I'll do anything you want. I'll even work in your shop, wearing an apron and arranging flowers if that's what it takes to be with you. I tilted my head slightly as he kept going, his words quiet and steady. So, please, marry me, be with me. His eyes never left mine. I love you. I swallowed hard, then gently touched his cheek again. He closed his eyes at the contact, leaning into my hand like he'd been waiting for it. Love, I whispered. You really do love me. He nodded without hesitation. I paused, the truth settling in my chest. There had been a time, quiet and hidden, when I wanted nothing more than to hear him say those words, because I loved him. I always had. That feeling never fully went away, no matter how hard I tried to bury it. My other hand rose, fully cupping his face now. I love you too, I whispered. Ethan exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for days. Then he pulled me into a tight hug, arms strong and warm around me. A small sound of surprise escaped my throat before I softened against him, a quiet giggle slipping out as I patted his back. Thank God, he murmured into my hair. I smiled against his shoulder. Maybe not enough to start a war, though. He let out a low chuckle and pulled back just enough to look at me. Then he kissed me. I melted into him without thinking, hands sliding up to his shoulders as the rest of the world faded. When we finally parted, Ethan was smiling, soft, certain, and completely unguarded. For you, he said quietly, I'll start any war.